Okay, so I call this meeting to order. Will staff please do roll call?
Jessica Lemkool. Andrew
Here.
Stump.
Here.
Luke Westdocker.
Here.
Morgan White.
Here.
Sarah Womack.
So we can move on to approval of previous minutes. Are there any addendums? Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve? Or
Yeah.
approve?
Yeah, a second?
I can second.
Okay. The meetings are hereby approved. So now we can move on to public input, but we don't have anyone right now. So we can then go on to staff report.
Good evening, Commission. I think we've talked before about this first item. The city received a $250,000 line item appropriation from the State of Illinois General Revenue Fund that's paying for an EV charging station at the Urbana Public Works Department office for fleet vehicle charging. That project is now underway. The final design calls for the stubbing out of 10 charging stations, although only 5 are going to be built to completion at this point in time. But we've made space available for 5 additional in the future as we ramp up our electrification of our fleet. And so that project's underway, and we are also evaluating what vehicles are going to be replaced soon that would be a good fit for an EV, and what EVs are available, and so on. So that all moves apace. We've also concluded our bulk purchase, 5th round of our bulk purchase program, Geothermal Urbana Champaign. It looks like we're probably going to finish up with 8 systems installed for 35 tons, so about the same amount of capacity that we built last year. What's not here is there's also a number of households that were interested in a ground source heat pump, but ended up putting in an air source heat pump as the ground source wasn't quite a good fit for them. Either way, that's a household that's gotten fossil fuels out of the heating, so that's good. Also have a note here. The city has executed an agreement to subscribe to a community solar array for all of our street light and traffic light electric accounts. And so, we're going to be getting the benefit of a community solar subscription. There's a discount as compared to, the default electric supply rate. And then that, the renewable energy credits accrue to the state of Illinois as part of the state's renewable portfolio standard. I also have some data in here about the U-Cycle program. We've talked in the past about a new vendor. We competitively select a recycling hauler typically every 5 years. It's typically a 5-year contract. We have a new hauler this most recent bidding cycle, and there were some operational changes and some technology changes, and we had a high number of miscollections the first 2 months. But we've continued to work with the vendor, and the data I've shared with you here is miscollection calls have gone down 75% in 6 months. So that's great, and we're, I think, probably, at a steady state now, a small number of miscollection calls every week. And so that's good. Things are moving.
How common were miscollection calls with the old vendor? Like, was that something that still happened?
A couple a week. And we're pretty close to that now. The last thing in the staff report is a proposed annual meeting schedule. It's the same as this current year, excepting I did not include a February meeting because I'm going to be out of town that particular week.
Are we aware of any deadlines in the next year, things related to city council or just city business that might affect our schedule? Like if we'd want to have more meetings before something?
Yeah, the other months that are not represented here mostly are because there's a holiday that would move city council from Monday to Tuesday and then bump us out of the room. One of the months is, there's an election and that bumps us out of the room. And then typically we haven't had a January meeting because it can be quite early in the month and a lot of people are not back from holidays yet.
But I think we can have an additional meeting if we determine we need to, right? This isn't restricting the meetings.
I was more like wondering if like meeting every month for 4 months is necessary, or if there are like situations where that wouldn't be necessary. But I guess we can approach that. We'll have it scheduled, and then if we need to cancel, we can do that.
Yeah, I think it's the Open Meetings Act does require some meeting schedule to be decided, published at the beginning of the year. Obviously, you can cancel meetings. There's also the potential for adding a meeting, and then there's some extra rules about doing that, but that's also possible.
Yeah. Does this meeting schedule look good? Anything?
I'm sorry, I had a different question on the
Yeah, go for it.
report. From the electric vehicle charging stations, that's great. What about, are you pursuing any of the electric vehicle itself? There's grant programs in the state to help buy electric vehicles for like heavy, I think it's truck, like it has to be a truck maybe. And I don't know if the ones at the city would qualify or if you've looked into that particular program.
I remember looking at something that sounds like what you're referring to, and I don't remember the details, but I remember, moving on from it. It didn't seem like a good fit. There are some, most of the trucks that we're using, there's not really like a mass-produced electric option. There are some, small production things out there for, street sweepers and that sort of thing. I know we've looked at some of those in the past. Maybe Vince Gustafson wants to comment on that, interim public works director.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with so much of our operations division equipment is so like specific in regards to the street sweepers, our Vector trucks, our sewer vans. I'm not sure that there's a lot of commercially produced options for those readily available yet in the market that at least that I'm familiar with. So at least initially, we're moving forward with the funding that we have. We're looking at some of our mid to light duty pickup trucks, as well as some of like our engineering technicians and our front office staff, our administration vehicles. That's where we're starting kind of as we move forward and pilot ahead. But we keep that in mind when we're looking at procurement options moving ahead.
And do you actually have some electric vehicles in the fleet now, fully electric?
We do have one. Yeah, one our sustainable.
The sedan.
Yeah, one small. I forget what the.
Passenger vehicle.
Yeah, a small passenger vehicle for our USOC coordinator. She operates out of that.
I had one other question. On the geothermal side, when you were talking about the air, heat pumps, the heat pumps that are not from the geothermal, but from air.
Air source.
Air source. The source is something else. Are those included in these numbers or are they separate? Okay.
No, they're not. We haven't kept a real close count on that. It's great. It's a good news story. But it wasn't like the original intent of the
Straight
program,
into
so
it.
we didn't keep a close count on it. But we know that there's about a half dozen that came kind of out of our program this year.
And do you think there's still, I can see we're getting lower numbers nowadays than previously, but I think some of that's the cost of construction is going up as well, just in general. But, I mean, do you think there's appetite in the community for doing this again in the future?
So there's a lot of things happening. The federal tax credit for residential geo installs expires at the end of the year, but the state of Illinois is creating a tax incentive that, you know, I don't know whether they're going to be, you know, equal if it's going to fully replace it. Geothermal is, I think, very important. Air source heat pumps and ground source heat pumps are really important in terms of reducing fossil fuel burning and pollution. You know, the state has a flight path for getting the pollution, decarbonizing all the electricity production, but the other side of the power bill, the heating side of the power bill, is really up to air source heat pumps and ground source heat pumps. So it's really important. It's also really hard. When your neighbor puts solar on their roof, you know, if the south-facing roof faces the street, everybody sees it and it advertises itself every single day. And it kind of has a high-tech, cool look to it. Ground source heat pumps, geothermal, once they're in and the grass is replanted, there's nothing to see. It doesn't advertise itself. Even if you go to someone's house and they show you the heat exchanger in the basement, it doesn't look cool. It's just a green box, a gray box. It's far more challenging to market and promote this conversion from fossil fuel heating to renewable than fossil fuel electricity to renewable. So, you know, we all need to just keep evaluating how we can be smarter about that.
Yeah, and I know you don't see anything, but that's one of my favorite things about the geothermal at my house is that in the backyard, you just see the yard. There's no air conditioner. And I was at a place before where the air conditioner was right next to the deck. I know I've said this probably in here before, but it's so irritating when it comes on. And yet with the geothermal, that doesn't happen because it's not outside. It's all inside with the heat pump. Maybe we should do some sort of like celebration of geothermal and try to like get people who like, I don't know, like a bike day could be a geothermal day. Just tell people I have geothermal and have some sort of signage in the community, because when I was getting it, there were a lot of people who said, oh yeah, I have that. Oh yeah, I have that. And I had no idea. So this is just the new stuff that we're through this bulk program, but there are other people with geothermal that aren't listed in this count, and people just don't know.
I'm just curious, how many of us have geothermal heating in our homes?
What is that, 40% of the commissioners? Maybe maybe it's a representative sample.
I'm thinking even like after construction, like they'll put signs in your yard. Could we get like a City of Urbana, like I used geothermal heating, or signs like that? Like I support the public library, things like that, to just kind of advertise and then see them up all around the city.
And maybe kind of addressing so I think something, if I bring up geothermal to people, they'll be like, but it's not as, like, you don't have as much control over the temperature. So if we could maybe do some kind of myth busting of geothermal, like quiet backyard, geothermal, you know, it's just as effective as other types of heating and air. Geothermal, it's awesome. And it doesn't hurt the planet. So, not trying to be a hypocrite though, because I don't actually have geothermal, but definitely interested in it still and just haven't gotten around to it. So, yeah.
I don't know where that comment about you can't control the temperature comes from, because you actually have more control. And it runs more efficiently because you don't have to do anything. You just set your limits you want, and the heat pump does all the work for you.
I think that is the kind of information we need out there. You know, I don't know if it's because I've worked in schools with geothermal and the school temps are always like way off, but that is definitely something I've heard where people are like, it is not, you know, it's like you can't get your house cold, or you can't control it as much. And I think kind of just going against that would be potentially helpful.
I just got a couple questions. So with the air calculating,
Yeah, no, I haven't really, we haven't tracked that all that closely. But the vendor just noted that he had, he had 6 leads for geothermal installs that didn't pan out, but did go ahead and get an air source heat pump. Yeah. Yeah.
and the other question I had, is the city
No, I don't have an obvious use case for that in Urbana. But I think you're working on one, right? Or you're not working on that particular? In Champaign.
Are there other programs for geothermal?
Be sure to speak into the microphone.
Yearly funding for energy efficiency programs, and there's also another program for, I guess it's for existing, it would be for existing geothermal if they did an energy audit.
Hmm.
You can get
Hmm.
funding for that back for your systems already installed, like the last 5 years.
Is the community geothermal system for like a district, that's like a district system for geothermal? I think within the city, unless there were multiple city buildings that could kind of all use a set that was on public property in that way, I think really it's more about like a planning, comprehensive plan, zoning allowance kind of thing to allow for it in a next development or retrofitting an existing residential area. So it's not, because in a residential, I don't think it would be the city buildings because the city doesn't own residences, right? So I think it's more about the planning
Yeah, I was wondering if
rules and expectations.
Scott had some group that might be interested, neighborhood, that might be interested, and so they would, I think they would apply themselves.
As a neighborhood?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there are companies now that will run or do ownership for neighborhoods.
Yeah, I don't know that there's any planning, zoning, permitting that would be a barrier to it. When a developer has a big plot of land and is starting a new neighborhood from scratch, I could see a district geo system being something worthy of being evaluated by the developer instead of running the gas, you run the geo, and it's all the same, but better in the long run.
I guess if there's any data centers that are being proposed, those could be the center point for the thermal energy network, since they're trying to have to get rid of their heat.
I thought of one more question on a different line. For the solar subscription, how long is that agreement? Do you remember?
I think it's 15 years.
And do you know where the solar panels are?
No.
Okay.
They have to be in Illinois.
Okay.
You've mentioned before that one of the reasons it might be tapering off is you've like caught up with the buildup of need in our community, and now you've got most people who have wanted geothermal, and now it's just convincing new people. Is that kind of still the hypothesis?
Yeah, I think these bulk purchase programs, solar and geo, at first they take a lot of people who are already on the fence and give them a great opportunity to commit. Then you have to go out and educate and recruit and entice folks who were not on the fence to begin with to take an interest and commit. So yeah, we probably soaked up some people who had already been thinking about geo, already been doing some research in the first couple of years. And now we're doing the education because, most folks don't know how air source or ground source heat pumps work, not familiar with it. Whereas everybody knows if you plug in a solar panel, it produces electricity. Like, they don't have to be told that. But this is pretty novel for most folks. So there's a lot more work to it.
Because I think if that's part of the case, really getting like people to see how many of their neighbors have it and making it seem like a cool thing and the new thing would be a good approach.
Yeah, social norming is one of the strategies we use for these bulk purchase programs. The power hour that we do is educational, but it's also, showing that there's people in the neighborhood that have that interest. We use yard signs to show that people in your neighborhood are, either got us, install last year or are getting an install this year. Just the same as if you hire a carpenter or whatever, they put a yard sign in your yard for the period while they're doing the work. Similar kind of strategy.
Any more questions on the staff report? Okay, so we can move on to, hold on. There we go. Okay. So the new business is the discussion of the SAC and city sustainability goals with city leadership. So we have Vince here today. So we can kind of go through some of the goals and things that we've been thinking as a commission. And if you have any insight on some of those or ways that we can start approaching them or ways we can maybe help you with some of your goals for sustainability of the city, I think that's a good use of this meeting.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you for the invite. Just a quick introduction. I don't think I've met a lot of you. My name is Vince Gustafson. I've been with the city of Urbana for 23 years now. I've came up through building maintenance, to the facilities supervisor, facilities manager. The past 5-6 years, I've been the deputy director for public works. I manage the operations division, so fleet, streets, lighting, arbor, landscaping, facilities, parking, just the day-to-day. We basically maintain the assets of the city. The past 4 months, I've stepped in and filled in as the interim public works director. So today, this is just as much of a learning session as I kind of understand, what this commission's role is, and be mainly a support here for Scott. I know I've worked for Scott his entire career here, and he's amazing, and I enjoy working with him every day. So to the extent that I'd love to hear your input and provide, feedback where I can, that'd be fantastic.
Thank you again so much for making it today.
Welcome.
Find the document.
Are you saying you're going to go through our resolution first or the materials that Olivia sent?
I was thinking our resolution first.
Yeah.
And we don't need to go through it pretty,
Not the whereases, but
Yeah.
the whats, the encourage. Okay.
yes. So I think so I'll do section 3 through 15. So section 1 is incentivize local businesses to recycle, such as by using UCycle mixed bins and multi-dumpsters that can be integrated in existing pickup routes by 2027.
That's number 3.
3. And then begin an education campaign to make UCycle a cultural habit in Urbana by universalizing what can go into these bins, whether our residents in public or in a business, by 2026. Prioritize the installation of capital projects by 2026. Coordinate with Urbana Park District to provide increased access to parks, greenways, and recreational areas and support their strategic plan and CARES plan by 2028. Appropriate and find all necessary resources to plant trees in the 2,000 vacant city tree sites by using the newly expanded staff capacity and arbor crew, while also using community volunteers and engaging with local businesses and schools by 2035. Support the creation of new net zero housing defined as highly energy efficient buildings that produce on-site or procure enough carbon-free renewable energy to meet building operation energy consumption by 2026. Increase access to renewable energy technologies in residential and commercial buildings and projects, i.e. solar and geothermal systems, by 2026. Electrified the majority of city-owned vehicles, equipment, and tools using rechargeable batteries or hydrogen fuel cells by 2030. Coordinate with local entities such as Urbana Free Library and Urbana School District 116 to promote and support education and awareness programs for sustainability by 2026. Prioritize the incorporation of mixed-use developments in cities' urban planning to incentivize walking, bikeability, and the use of public transit by 2026. Continue pursuing the streetlight management asset plan to install new streetlights in neighborhoods without any and replace old streetlights with a more uniform and low light pollution design by 2026. Move forward on implementing a carryout bag fee for all single-use plastic bags distributed by retailers as soon as possible, and begin to investigate other ways to reduce the amount of single-use plastic bags as well as single-use polystyrene packaging in the city by 2026, and support environmental stewardship legislation at the state and local level by 2028. So those are kind of the goals we identified a few months ago. If there are any that commission members want to specifically talk about to Vince with, or any that Vince has some input on, you can do that now.
Yeah, I'd be glad to just kind of touch on a few things that I'm familiar with that align with that. Looking at number 5, the installation of energy efficiency technologies in the cities. One of the big benefits for us that I was really highly involved with was development of the facilities master plan, which really prompted the construction of our new storage facility on the Public Works site. That afforded us the opportunity to do solar installation, so we do have solar panels installed on that. And just recently, today you've seen in the paper yesterday, we did the official ribbon cutting for the new fire stations, 2 brand new fire stations that replaced 2 highly inefficient 1960s era single pane windows, old HVAC systems, poor insulation. The fact that now we have 2 modern geothermal stations, I mean, just that in itself, and then affording us the opportunity for expansion of solar there, that's been wonderful. We're in design development and design document review for an expansion and rehabilitation at the Public Works facility. That'd be our next major project. That'll afford us the opportunity to replace a bunch of our aging roofs that Scott and I know Scott's been anxious, and we've talked about this for years. Once those roof systems are replaced and we have that 15, 20-year lifespan, that'll be a great opportunity for expand solar at those facilities too. And we're looking at the systems and the designs that we're installing into there to make them efficient. So that's been a great benefit for us to really hit head on with some of these really impactful projects. And from a facilities perspective, looking at Section 6, coordinating with the Urbana Park District. I know we just recently had a meet and greet with the new director, so we're reestablishing that connection and those communications. So I know that's a collaboration that we always will have had previously and look forward to committing to. Section 7, yeah, this is one that we love to hear about because this is tangible. The commitment to city trees and establishing the urban forest. We did get it this fiscal year approved of new full-time city arborist position. We're hopeful that job description will be approved this week through our Civil Service Commission, and with approval of that job description, we'll be able to post and advertise. Right now, we have one arbor landscape supervisor / city arborist, and he does an amazing job, but it's more work than any one person should reasonably be expected to do. So by expanding this and adding a full-time position, we can really expand our opportunities for the bidding, the procurement, tree health, resident engagement, all the traditional arborist roles, while our arbor landscape supervisor will be dedicated to the full-time arborist technician, that day-to-day supervision, where we were able to add the third-time arbor techs. So with the arbor technicians, with our crew leaders, with a dedicated supervisor, working out in the field, overseeing the work and the contractual obligations, then a dedicated city arborist, once again, full-time, helping us explore grants and do donation plantings and identifying our species. I know native species is a huge thing that we work with on our tree commission when we have vacant tree sites, making sure that we're putting the right species out there and maintaining tree health. And there's 13,000 tree sites, between 13,000, 14,000 tree sites that we maintain, and just maintaining that database of tree health and responding to resident concerns and making sure that we're trying to get back on a what's really industry standard, which is a 7-year cycle for pruning for all of our residential areas in our networks. That's our goal. And having more staff, it just takes staff, takes time, it takes commitment, it takes the people doing the work. So we're hopeful that when we get our positions filled, the arborist position filled, that's going to be our goal, that we can really move forward with the tree program here. So we do take that seriously.
And on that, I'm just wondering, do you anticipate that this additional staffing is enough to, is hopefully enough to manage the full 13,000 so sites and additional sites, or is it kind of see how it plays out, and we might need
I definitely think
additional at the
it's
city?
see how it plays out. Along with the limiting factor, starts with staff, like arbor technicians. We need certified technicians who are trained and can do the job correctly and safely. So adding the third position helps there. Then the limiting factor, with the third position added, we have procured a second lift truck. So if we only have one large arbor-rated bucket truck, we can only be doing high pruning with 2 crew members at any given time. So we've added that. We're in the procurement stage for a second smaller scale lift truck, so we can have 2 arbor technician crews with ground support working out, which will greatly enhance our productivity. And then with a dedicated supervisor who can primarily focus on being out in the field, working with them, training and providing that assistance, while the dedicated arborist is in actually managing the tree health, the size, the data. I think it's going to make really tangible gains, and then we'll pivot and we'll see what that relates to. We have a new work order asset management system that's it's very robust, and it's afforded us the opportunity to actually track and manage the work and the quantity of work, whether it's tree trimming or replacing light fixtures or jetting sewers or snow removal, where we can track hours, log, and we have that data that helps us actually look from year to year to see if we're improving, or we can actually determine, is it reasonable to think that we can get through 1 or 2, 3 networks a year, and we can actually come up with a strategic plan. We've used a comparative model is for sanitary sewers, where we are fully staffed. We have a sewer network that we divide up into 10 zones, the entire city. We track our work on a percentage base. We set a goal for 2 zones per year. And with that data, I can report back to the executive department that we can complete 2 zones per year. Just take that equivalent to trees. We'll have that same methodology as they move through the network. If there's 1,000 trees in a zone, we can see as they go through each day and complete each tree trimming, we can track our work. So that's our goal moving forward, is to actually have reportable data that we can report back on progress. So fingers crossed that once we get the right people staffed in and we get things going, that it'll be really tangible improvements. So we're excited about that. Moving down the list on what else I can comment on. I know we discussed the city-owned vehicles. That's a great leap forward. It's kind of the chicken and the egg argument for us. You can't buy city vehicles until you have the infrastructure in place to charge them. And we knew that we had this in the capital improvement plan, the facilities master plan, this giant renovation coming to the Public Works facility. So we were waiting for that to come in order of queue before we did made the investment. Once we determined that the storage facility that we're doing the installation in, once we determined that we were keeping that facility as it was, then we were comfortable making the investment, a multi-$100,000 investment in that facility, putting that there. We knew how the parking was laid out, where the vehicles would live. So that's just kind of a testament to strategic planning, knowing that you're not going to sink $200,000, $300,000 in electrical infrastructure for a facility that might get torn down. So once we had that plan in place, we knew that was there. We were comfortable, and thank goodness for everyone's support and the grant funding that helped us move forward with that. We were comfortable moving and getting that in place. With the charging stations being in place, now we're comfortable working with Travis, who's our fleet supervisor, trying to spec out what's the appropriate vehicles. And starting with 5, we've expanded it, so eventually we can move to 10, and then we can move forward. Another key consideration for us is we maintain all Public Works, all the municipal fleet. So we have 4 full-time certified mechanics who work for our fleet supervisor in operations and Public Works. Training's another big one for us. So we are going to have to work with them. There's a whole nother system, you know, in regards to the training required to maintain these vehicles. So we're going to be leaning into that quickly with bringing them up to speed on how we're maintaining these vehicles once they're in service. I know, like, rechargeable batteries versus gas-powered equipment for just our day-to-day operations staff. Anytime we get an opportunity, that's our crew's preference. I mean, realistically, it's so much easier. It's more convenient. They're quieter and less maintenance, easier to start. So we're definitely trending in that direction as we replace equipment just in our day-to-day operations. Let's see. Of course, we continue to partner with the Free Library and the school district. Urban planning, walkability, bikeability, our continued work with BPAC and grants and the Imagine Urbana. I know Baker's Lane's a huge one, and we'll continue to work with the Kickapoo Rail Trail, and looking forward to that, hopefully. Streetlight Asset Management Plan. Recently, we've started what we're calling coordination meetings between our engineering division and our operations division. So all of our, whether it's electrical or pavement or sewers, we have a monthly coordination meeting. So our engineering team, who hires the consultants to come in and help us kind of get our larger asset management plan together. We bring in our electrical supervisor with input from our field staff, so that, you know, we call it like the windshield survey. So like the people out actually have the actual view of what we're working with in the street, where we need to invest our capital improvement money dollars, what works, what doesn't work. We marry that together with the consultants and the engineering information so that we can come together and get a good plan in place. Perfect example of that is the Lincoln Avenue corridor, where we got a grant, I believe it's from Pennsylvania to really north of Bradley Avenue. I forget how many luminaires, around 180, something ballpark. Don't hold me to it, but where we received a grant that paid for the new replacement luminaire street lighting. We were able to utilize our in-house staff, so our electricians were able to do that installation, which greatly extends the value of the grant money. So we can spend the totality of the grant funds, use our crews available, the soft costs of the hourly, so we can put them and have them in. And then, like I said earlier, with our work order in asset management tracking, we can calculate all the hours, labor hours, the material and equipment costs, and we can see the total project cost. Kicks out an instant report that Scott can use for the grant paperwork, and it really demonstrated, kind of gives us a scale. If we can do 80 fixtures in X amount of hours, it gives me a rough magnitude of, okay, well, if we're fully staffed in our electrical division in-house and I dedicate 2 projects, we can kind of divide by that the total number of streetlights. So to the extent that we can articulate the need for us to keep pursuing these grant fundings, and it's a pretty low lift for us to be able to make these conversions quickly and efficiently. I know our crews like that kind of like planned programmatic work that's out in front of them too. So it really was a great example of working, Scott working in, his role, our engineering group looking at the larger asset management, then our operations team actually coming in and performing the work. So I was pretty proud of, that effort and looking forward to more opportunities like that in the future. I know that carry-out bag fee is a new one for me. We'll be talking about that soon, so I'll get myself up to speed on what that means moving forward into the new budget season. And a quick rundown of what I have for the list.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. That's really, really helpful.
You're welcome.
Any questions?
I had a question just in general about Section 11 for coordinating with the Urbana School District to promote the awareness programs. Were those aimed to be at which level were they aimed to be at, like a high school or middle school, elementary school?
We had a discussion about the need to expand knowledge about sustainability, like we were just talking about with geothermal. And in that commission discussion, we recognize there's a lot of opportunity to partner with great entities like the school district and the library. We did not dig into how or in what way. Although that makes me also think about the scouts. So like, is it the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts? I don't know their official term, but they are bringing thousands of people in like a year and a half who are interested in doing a lot of volunteering. So maybe we could work on suggesting something where it's like a 4-day mass visit to our community, that maybe they could partner with some of the tree planting, for example. That
Yeah.
wouldn't be an educational piece, but sort of the same sort of partnerships, just
Yeah.
opening the ideas.
Yeah, I recently established an event in coordination with Urbana High School and the Park District, and we're going to bring around 60 to 70 volunteers to their next Fresh Crew cleanup session in Busey Woods. And so I know there's people at the high school who are definitely motivated to do whatever, if it means creating an educational video on geothermal energy or getting people together to help with tree planting. Just please tell me what you need, and I will definitely be able to make that happen.
I think the approach of educating about geothermal by going to the kids and then having them bug their parents about it is an interesting approach we could always take, but yeah. Are there any sustainability initiatives or things that have been happening that might not be on our radar or weren't included in this list? Anything that came to mind?
I might have mentioned it in past meetings. We've just cut the ribbon on the 2 new fire stations. They are geothermal heated and cooled. We're very proud of that. It's an amazing accomplishment. These are amazing buildings, not something that every fire station is doing, every new fire station in the state. We do intend to collect some number of months of bills and then use that as the basis to size and solicit rooftop solar installations for these buildings. So, they don't use any gas, but they're using some grid electricity. So we're going to offset that with some on-site solar as well. So that's, that's in the hopper. That's going to happen. We just, need to give it time to actually use the buildings and see how much. I think probably the amount of electricity they're going to use could never be provided by roof, the amount of space that's available on the roof. So we're probably not at risk of overproducing. but we might as well give it a few months and operate the buildings and find out. So that's baked in. We are, the fleet electrification is iterative on purpose. So we want to make small bets, make small mistakes, learn, and do better and expand. So we're not building EV charging for 100% electric fleet. We're building a bank of chargers, and we're going to learn if we've designed the procurement, the design, the engineering correctly, if we design the procurement correctly, do we get what we actually needed in the software, and so on. We're going to have to learn about, the type of vehicles that are really going to be fit for purpose, and so on. So this is going to be a long iterative rollout with a lot of learning going on from multiple types of positions at Public Works. And we don't want to talk about it yet, but because we want to do the learning at Public Works, but we've got to copy and paste the same project over here at the city building. But we're not through the project yet at Public Works. So just off the top of my head, a couple of things there.
And just thank you so much for all of that work, because I think we're all very excited about the new fire stations and then the new Arbor Tech, and yeah, the EV fleet is going to be an amazing thing. Thank you.
Agreed. And also, like, it totally makes sense to kind of phase in the vehicles, because you want to make sure you don't buy a bunch of vehicles that are going to break or, not work, so that does make a ton of sense. One question I had was about the city the recycling and bringing it to businesses. Has that come up in any, I know we've talked about it here, like how, that's 2 years away, so that's kind of soon. I mean, there's a lot of 2026 on here, y'all, which is kind of, just got my ears perked up a little bit, but just wondering, because that would, I don't know, just wondering if anything is developed in that realm.
I think that's a good example. We've got a couple of different documents pulled up on the computer. One is the resolution that this body passed, and there's Imagine Urbana, which is the city's long-term, big picture, comprehensive plan, and then is there one more, mayor and council goals, maybe? That, a commercial recycling mandate or service would have to make its way onto, it's probably too specific for Imagine Urbana, because that's very big, but it would have to make its way onto the agenda literally or figuratively for city council, because that would require an ordinance. So, when I say literally or physically or figuratively, things that are on the typically 2-year mayor and council goals are literally on the agenda. And then sometimes things that didn't make it on there still end up becoming a topic at city council.
I don't remember if there's something in mayor and city council goals that is related to that we could tie in, but we should definitely look into that.
Yeah, I'll speak to that point too. I mean, from a departmental leadership, to the extent that we can align the goals of the commissions just like this, as well as the tree commission and the bicycle pedestrian advisory commission. As we look at council goals and we look at the Imagine Urbana goals, and then we look at the goals of this from our perspective, that's a lot of ground to cover, and from a limited staff time and availability, and they're all agreeable, and we're looking forward to getting there. But from a reporting standpoint and a feed standpoint, that we can look and kind of get those and find out where those common threads are and find out where those alignments are, so that we can, the time and effort we put towards them align commonly. So that's perspective.
Just a follow-up on that. So these goals in the packet, do you mind scrolling to, I think it's right after the resolution. It says they're 24, 25. So I assume they're with the prior city administration and not the current mayor.
That's correct.
council members. Is the, what is the time frame for the next set of these goals? Or is that already, is it pre-scheduled?
I don't think they have defined a timeline yet, at least in our cabinet meetings. The city administrator said that they're reaching out via the 2x2s with the council members to define the strategy moving forward. And the new administration aligned kind of right with the completion, came in right with the completion of the Imagine Urbana comprehensive plan, which is kind of the overarching guiding document for the entire city. So I think they're bringing the same comment that I just brought to this group here. It's like, how can we align everything, and do we want to focus with city council in regards to let's pivot from set strategic council goals to how do the council's goals align with what we have in our overarching guiding document that came out of the multi-year process of defining that comprehensive plan. So I don't think it's fully defined, it's fully developed yet. I don't think, to my knowledge and understanding, there's an exact timeline or what shape or form it's going to take, but just trying to steer the conversations in that direction at the moment.
I feel like these goals were written spring, summer of '24-ish. Yeah. So our next meeting is like March. So we might be able to then try and figure out what the draft is and see if we can get some things on it. Because I think we definitely want the plastic bags, and then if we can add a recycling thing onto city and council goals, I think that'd be great.
Right. I think it's clear, as I, sit in the commission meetings and I read it, that the values are the same. I mean, the values of all these different commissions and the values of the city and the values of city are represented in here. It's just a question of how can we devote our time and resources to the most impact. And if they align and we can find those alignments, that's probably the best bang for our buck.
So we can also quickly go through the things Olivia sent. Not sure if everyone saw this email. But basically including a copy of the Imagine Urbana tracker, which is assigning point people and partners to each goal, and then the comprehensive plan, which we've already kind of looked through, and then with the big moves 8 and 11, which were also included in our packet. Yeah, and they don't have a planner currently dedicated to the comprehensive plan at this time, but like there's active hiring going on. So I think similar things about us trying to maybe get specific things on city and council goals for the next few years.
I wonder if you want to pull up the PDF that is the tracker?
Yeah,
Is that,
this one, yeah.
oh, it's hard to read there, but I found it interesting, and I was pleased to see Sustainability Advisory Commission is listed on the pieces. I think it's where Scott is also listed.
There's somewhere I should go on here.
Trying to remember where it was that I just saw that. Yeah,
Sustainability and
it's the,
resilience.
Public Works. So it says Public Works, Planning, Sustainability Advisory Commission. I'm sorry, it's up a page is where our, is it there on the
Yeah.
Look at that. We're impactful. But I'm interested in, with this whole long list, I mean, maybe our commission could, and again, like you said at the March meeting, maybe we could recommend items that we believe are, if we had to pick 4 things on the sustainability side, which 4 would we pick? You said the bag fee, which I don't know, is that specifically in this list or not? It was from the past mayor goals, and it's in our resolution.
Yeah, so it's in mayor goals, mayor and council goals, which I think also have their own tracker on the website. I don't think there's anything
There's
in our Imagine
encourage
Urbana.
waste reduction, 11, under on page 2.
Okay. So it looks like Scott's doing that.
Cycle?
Yeah, and I guess then the plastic bags and recycling all tie into that really nicely. So that could really be a focus.
And I don't know the latest on the food waste efforts at the Landscape Recycling Center. Is it still viable and under consideration?
There was a hauler that was interested, a licensed private waste hauler that was interested in developing a food scrap collection business. We accepted food scrap tip from him for a number of months, and that vendor eventually discontinued that service. So,
It's still
Not-
missing the basic gap of how to get it from the
yeah.
source to the solution.
What, reading between the lines, I think what it costs to provide is more than what, enough people to justify a route and a person in a truck can provide.
I think the
It's just-
Student Sustainability Committee just funded a pilot.
Yeah, that's still on campus though, because the Student
Yeah.
Sustainability Committee for the university, the funding has to go towards university needs.
I was just saying they're using a company in Chicago. So the idea was to have the pilot and then see if they could actually encourage the company to not bring it up there.
Yeah, so we could also encourage from the city side, try to encourage.
I've spoken with that vendor. Part of their model is to do their own processing, which is fine. But if they were to develop a business here, they would probably end up doing their own processing of the material.
Would it be worthwhile to bring like John, Justin, and Kevin in to talk about some of these things?
Yeah, John and Justin would be able to speak pretty much very specifically to our capital improvement plan
Okay.
and how it aligns there. Kevin in regards to Arbor, he has good feedback too. But I mean, I could definitely speak for most of what Kevin would be able to bring to it. I mean, he reports to me as the Arbor supervisor. So.
Okay. Is there any move on the climate action plan for the city?
There hasn't been any resources directed to that effort yet.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but did our resolution came largely, was that kind of a source of some of these goals or no? The climate action plan, like the prior one, did we look at that when
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, and
That's-
that was like a preemptive before we do the climate action plan. These are what we think is important.
Got it. Yeah, I just need a refresher on that because I felt like it was connected to something that was already done.
We definitely went through all of the old goals and included some that were repeated and then added new ones. But that might be another thing to work on next year too. Because I think it expired in 2025 or, yeah, so it's due.
So I guess my question is there anything that we can do to help with any of this, like getting the plastic bag tax thing happening or the recycling stuff? Is there anything that we can do to be supportive in making any of these things happen? That's a general question for anyone who knows the answer or has an idea.
is maybe just getting an agenda item on city council or even presenting to city council the plastic bag and potential for a commercial use cycle. Is that a good next step?
I think an even smaller step would be just to reach out and communicate with your city councilors.
Yeah, because I think we did present on the bags.
On the plastic bag,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm hesitant to offer any suggestions until I've really had an opportunity to speak with Scott and kind of bring up to speed in at least my role here as interim director, so we can follow up.
Well, you've been working on a lot of the things on here, which is totally awesome. So it was heartening to see all of the bulleted list that was getting addressed, and then it's just also like just thinking as a team here of all these other things that we prioritized, and if we just get any of them done, that will feel great.
Is there anything else people want to discuss right now or bring up before our March meeting? So in 3 months? Yeah.
I'd like to ask, I'm sorry. Is the city, I know the Urbana Park District is participating is active in the expansion of the Kickapoo Rail Trail, but is the city also partnering or contributing in some way? I think the ITEP grant that's expanding it through Weaver Park is through the Park District. Is there a city aspect to that?
I know we're involved in the discussions, and I know we're involved in the planning, and that's where I would probably lean a little more into John Zeman from the engineering and the planning perspective, and I know he's working with previous, community development department, now that Olivia's, our new director's on board. I know that we're tied directly into that, and we're a stakeholder. We're involved in the conversation. We're eager to see that move forward, but I can't speak to exactly where we're at in the process.
I was, just want to put a plug in while on that topic. That particular project has some funding and has a bid that they've accepted through the Forest Preserve District to expand another segment of that trail beyond where it is right now. And they were a little short on funding, and if we can get enough donations for it over the next few months, then they won't have to cut back. But right now they're in the zone of, if they don't get enough sort of filling in the gap there on the trail financially from people who want to contribute or entities that want to contribute, then they'll actually have to do a revision and cut out some of the segments that they were going to do with the bid that the Forest Preserve District has approved. So if anyone is interested in supporting that, definitely reach out to them. Right now is the time between now and March. Thanks.
I think if also council members can reach out to, or commission members can reach out to council members and start that process. So hopefully there's been some communication by our March meeting. So we have a little bit more clear of a trajectory when we meet.
Given that our next meeting is in 3 months, and I definitely know that some people at the high school that I work with are pretty zealous, what would be the first steps towards kind of furthering this geothermal education program? Is there a certain point person that I could talk to, or should I reach out by email? I definitely think okay, cool.
One question I have, so I am also in a high school right now, so you go to Urbana, right? Yes, awesome. And you guys have an eco club of some kind. So just thinking about that 2026 goal, I feel like we could maybe collab on some stuff, or maybe Earth Week or Earth Month is, what I've called it in other schools that I've worked in. But now that we have, is it 6 members? What's the rules on how many people can be collaborating on something? So if we were emailing with, the 3 of us, is that too many people? That's my question.
3 would be too many.
Okay,
Oh, 2,
so we
The-
can email,
correct.
and we can email Andrew separately.
Does the youth seat count on that if it doesn't count on quorum?
Ooh,
I'd hate to find out the wrong way.
that is
Okay.
such a valid point,
That
though,
way.
but,
Or-
okay. Sweet.
So just from my understanding then, who's actually collaborating, who's taking the lead on that?
We're gonna try to get some stuff done, maybe.
I will send an email in the coming weeks.
Great. And I can also commit to sending an email to council, like, that's totally something that I can do.
That'd be great, thank you. Okay, anything else? Then we can move,
I'm sorry, just generally, it's been really wonderful to have you here and talk with us. Can we plan on, like, can you visit us more often? I know I'm saying every time,
No,
but,
that,
you know,
I-
maybe once a year or something to that
I-
effect, because it was probably 3 years ago that Bill Gray came and talked.
Oh.
Or however long, it was before he retired.
No, I'd be glad to communicate with Scott and drop in occasionally and help him provide updates. Sure, I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
that'd be amazing, thank you so much.
Welcome.
Okay, we can move to adjournment, so the meeting is Can I have a motion to approve the annual
So
meeting
moved.
schedule? Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, so approved. Okay, I now move to adjournment. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.